It starts off with our number 10 team, the Philadelphia 76ers.
Well, we saw some big news with them. Before we get into that, let's just start off with a little preview for how they're going to do this year. Let's look at their team. They started off at 43-30 last year. It's a good year for them, but at the end of the day, it was a disappointment for them because Philly has been trying to make it to the championship and at least have a finals appearance at some point with the core that they have, and they haven't been able to do it. They decided to fire their coach in Brett Brown and hire Doc Rivers. They got Dave Yeager as an assistant, and they made some big offseason moves this year. They lost Al Horford, they lost Josh Richardson, and they lost Alec Burks. So two guys that were, decent guys in their rotation. Alec Burks played a little bit, but not that big of a loss for them. Getting Seth Curry, I like that pickup for them. He's not a guy that's going to make them become a championship contender, but I like that pickup. What did you think of that?
I was fine with it. I think adding more shooters, because they did lose a lot when they lost J.J. Redick like 2 years ago. You could tell that they were missing something on the court. And you add Danny Green, who historically very good shooter. Last year struggled a little bit, but we don't know if that's a one-year struggle or if he's getting older. It's just starting to hit that wall. But Seth Curry is still effective in that role. I like the pickups they had this offseason. They somehow, some way got out of Al Horford's contract. That Daryl Morey. God damn it! Why can't I talk? Start over.
Just go. Just say Daryl Morey. Go.
They got out of Al Horford's contract. Daryl Morey came in, seemingly in 2 months was able to get rid of that contract and really was able to kind of correct a lot of what Philadelphia went wrong with. Shout out to him for that. They had a pretty good offseason, I think. But we have them at 10. Usually they're a little bit higher in most, but I think given the fact that over the last couple of years they've kind of underachieved what people's expectations were, I feel like putting them at 10 is okay because you never know. They could still do good. They might even make a trade for a certain superstar.
Yeah, let's get into that. We got some breaking news that just came out 10 minutes ago. So we're hearing rumors that are starting to heat up that James Harden is seeming to find his way out of Houston. It's looking like Daryl Morey wants to get his guy back. We've heard a lot about Daryl Morey's infatuation with James Harden. That's one of his favorite guys, and I think we all had a feeling at some point Daryl Morey was going to try and go get James Harden. Right now, we are hearing two rumors. One is Brooklyn is getting involved. Brooklyn, obviously, that's a team we talked about a month ago, that we thought, hey, this is probably going to be the team that gets James Harden. If they do, they're automatic championship favorites. The other team is the Philadelphia 76ers, the team we're talking about right now. The Sixers are an interesting option, right? Because Harden, Ben Simmons, and Embiid, that's a really nice big three. I don't know. You tell me if you think that's a good big three. I like that. But it seems like Daryl Morey is including Ben Simmons in those talks to get James Harden. And that's probably what it takes to get a guy like James Harden from Houston. But guess what? They're saying those talks have gone nowhere close to a deal. So, Caleb, Ben Simmons doesn't have enough value to get traded for a unhappy superstar that's causing a ton of problems. Does that worry you at all?
A little bit. And what really worries me is when rumors like this kind of leak right before the season starts, where, let's face it, Simmons and Embiid are the two guys in that locker room, right? That starts to get leaked. Stuff's going to happen in that locker room, right? Like, stuff's going to be said. There's going to be some murmurs of, like, disgruntled players now. And it's like, you really want to keep those rumors down. You never want those to get out. And now that they've gotten out, it's kind of like a thing where we'll see if it snowballs into anything like Ben Simmons then says, well, I want out then if you're going to trade me. And I don't know if it will get to that point, but it's definitely not good to have those rumors leak. Because whenever the Celtics had the thing with Jason Tatum even said he wants to go somewhere that wants him, like whenever he was getting rumored in the Anthony Davis stuff. So it will happen. I wonder how much it'll snowball if they don't make a deal for him.
I think it's interesting the fact that Philly is willing to give up Ben Simmons, and right now to me it's surprising that they've offered multiple trade packages, including Ben Simmons, and Houston hasn't jumped on it. Ben Simmons is still one of the best young players in this league. He has probably the most potential of any young player that hasn't really hit it. He has one part of his game that he needs to unlock, and that's shooting. That's really it. He has everything else: size, strength, the skill set, the passing, the finishing skills, everything. But the only thing he doesn't have is shooting.
He's one of those few players that can like legitimately guard 1 through 5 perfectly fine. We talked about last night with the Jazz with Rudy Gobert how he cannot guard guards. Ben Simmons can realistically guard 1 through 5.
He's an all-world defender for sure.
Yeah, and that's really, really rare. I just think people are underrating him, and I feel like if he unlocks that shooting, dude, man, it's going to be a scary, scary sight.
And that's why, to me, first of all, Daryl Morey including him in trade packages doesn't surprise me because he's in love with James Harden. He wanted to do anything he could to build. We saw it. We just talked about it on our last podcast. They did everything possible to cater to Harden, and now we just heard rumors that Harden hasn't even been talking to the GM. So that, to me, that problem there in Houston and the fact that Ben Simmons can't even get value, it's a little bit shocking to me, I would say. And it is worrying because that tells me that Ben's image is not as high as we all think, maybe. And maybe GMs don't see him the way a lot of us fans do.
It is a shooting league, and he plays a position where you kind of have to be able to shoot, and he doesn't. That's why when Embiid was out last year, they kind of used Ben Simmons as like a power forward, and they kind of let him roam the paint in the half court and let him pass out of the post and everything, and it worked. I don't think him and Embiid really fit well. I don't think they really boost each other's value, if that makes sense. Like, they don't really lift each other up. I don't know. I'm really high on Ben Simmons, but maybe seeing that he's not enough to get a disgruntled superstar kind of tells you some stuff.
Yeah, that is interesting to find out what's going to happen there. We'll probably find out in the next few days. One thing, though, before all that is Doc Rivers. And Doc Rivers just got hired this past offseason. And we talked about how we don't think he is that right coach for them. And we just don't know Doc's ability to coach anymore at the NBA level, especially as a head coach. But what do you think? I mean, do you think with Harden that'll change? Do you think with Ben and Embiid that could change? What do you think Doc's fit really is with this team?
I think he can work with one of them, but I don't think he can really work with both of them, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like it's just a bad fit for modern basketball. Like I said 2 seconds ago, they don't really lift each other up. I watched how he was using – I mean, this is preseason. I was watching how he used Embiid against the Celtics, and it was very, like, flash him to the high post. He was getting to work in that mid-range area. And it was effective, but, like, Ben Simmons and Embiid, they can't really work together unless they're in a fast-paced offense. You know what I mean? Like, get out, run, have cuts. It doesn't really work it doesn't really work in a half-court offense. I don't think they're going to be able to work, but I don't think that he's going to help them out, and I don't think the roster construction really is going to help him out, if that makes sense.
I agree with that. This is a tough roster to look at, and I think that's why Daryl Morey's looking at, hey, we should probably do something with this roster and really shake it up because it makes sense. We talked about it on our last podcast. Damon CJ, Beal and Wall, these guys that are together for so long, they eventually have to break them up. Why? Because of a lot of these owners don't want to keep paying luxury tax and at the top of the line salary for guys that are not getting them championships. It is actually a little bit confusing why you'd want to break up such a young duo this early, but I get the fact that Daryl Morey's a new GM and he's in a little bit of a – you know how he is. Daryl Morey's in win-now mode. He doesn't wait till next year. He loves to just go straight for the prize.
You got to think, too, Embiid's also turning 27 in March. So it's like he's kind of entering that spot where it's like you might want to start surrounding him with guys that can win now and maybe elevate your ceiling. But, again, if you can't get Harden for Ben Simmons, like what really is there to get for him? Because Harden basically has, like, tanked his value. We saw how it happened in the NFL. I know, different sport. Antonio Brown really tanked his value, right? Top at his position. Harden's top at his position. He's tanking his value. Ben Simmons isn't enough to get him. That's kind of shocking to me.
It is worrying and shocking. We'll get back to that in a few seconds. Let's go to our buy or sell segment. Caleb, first off, head coach of the Sixers, Doc Rivers. There's Doc Rivers talking about his new additions, Danny Green and Dwight Howard, two championship guys that he feels like are going to make a big impact for their team this year. My question to you, Caleb, does Doc Rivers overrate his and others' championship pedigree? Do you buy or sell that?
Can I hold that? Nah, I'm playing. I'm over that. I'm going to sell that because I feel like championship pedigree is a very important thing to have in a locker room. I clowned the Lakers all last offseason for bringing guys like Rondo, Dwight Howard, thought they were washed. But you saw in the playoffs, granted they did, play a underseeded Heat team, and it's like they had injuries, but still having that pedigree in the locker room, talking to guys. I know LeBron has championship pedigree too, which kind of changes some things, but it does make a difference. And I feel like that's very important to have in the locker room. Now, I will say that Doc Rivers really does overrate his championship trophy because there was times, like Ray Allen even said on a podcast, like there was times where the players were more in charge than Doc Rivers was. And like Ray, KG, and Pierce, like they were in charge of keeping the locker room in check, keeping like egos and everything. And like Doc Rivers was kind of just there. He was just kind of like the guy on the pedestal getting all the credit. So I would say that for players, very important. In terms of Doc, a little bit overrated.
I agree partially with what you're saying with Doc Rivers, but I can't say I agree with what you're saying as far as championship pedigree. And my defense for that is a lot of teams try to go and get those players that have championship pedigree. And don't kill me for this, but I'm going to go back to the Kings. When they got George Hill and Zebo and Vince Carter, and I know these guys aren't all championship players, but they're guys that have won championships. And then we got Marco Bellinelli. And when you get these guys, people overrate the fact that, oh, well, they have championship pedigree. They're going to be.
But also, don't forget, the 76ers are a playoff team. The Kings were not.
I get that. All right. Let me get to my point before you just destroy the Kings. A lot of teams try and do that, but how often does it work? Philly has tried it before. They've tried getting guys around Embiid that are older veterans to really help mold him into a leader, but it doesn't always work like that. And yeah, I think getting a guy like Danny Green is helpful, but hey, Kawhi Leonard has championship pedigree. What happened with the Clippers this year? Paul George doesn't have championship pedigree, but putting a guy like Kawhi, who, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that. Abe.
But I see your point you're making. Like Kawhi's championship pedigree, people thought that any team he went to, he could win a championship. Because I remember there was a tweet after he won the championship for Toronto and then he was like opting out and everything. He was going to be a free agent. Everyone was like, do the Hawks next. Like go to the Hawks and win a championship. Like he got really, really put on a pedestal because of that championship. So I do agree that at times it can be overrated.
Yeah, and that's why I'm going to sell. I also agree that Doc completely overrates his championship pedigree. He's won one championship in his life. And again, that's not to discredit it, but it's against.
But look at the players. Look at the players he's coached. I mean, you got what? You got Tracy McGrady, Grant Hill. This is just off the top of my head. Paul Pierce, Rondo, Ray, KG, Blake Griffin, Chris Paul.
Jamal Crawford.
Who else is Jamal Crawford. Then you got Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and now he has Ben Simmons and Embiid. With that many players you've coached, a lot of them on the same team, you would kind of figure like at least he'd be in the championship more than twice. You know what I mean? Like at least he'd appear in it. But like he left the Celtics because he didn't want to deal with the rebuild. And whenever he went to the Clippers, they never went to the conference finals. Celtics have 3 times since then. He's not that good of a coach, and it's like his pedigree, just like I mentioned earlier, the big 3 in Boston were the ones that were in charge of that team. And he kind of just got credit for no reason.
Agreed. I think Doc Rivers is completely overrated, and we'll see how he does in Philly this year. Next up, let's talk to former Sixer Ben Simmons.
A coach wants me to make plays, and there's a numerous way to do that. Is scoring, there's getting to the rim, there's drawing defenders. They're setting picks and just creating options. So I think just me having the ball and be able to create different varieties of options is going to be tough for teams to guard. Whether it's me kicking it ahead and setting a pick or setting a back screen for Joe, is going to be tough for guys to guard.
There's Ben Simmons. He was just saying there how he feels that him and Doc have a good relationship enough to really make it work there, and he thinks they'll have a good year there. But, Caleb, I want to even ask you before we even get to that, Ben Simmons will be in Philly after this season. Buy or sell?
I'm going to buy that he will be, because I feel like if they're not going to get Harden for him, they're not going to find a guy that good, that cheap. You know what I mean? Like, you're better off just keeping him at that point. But maybe we're overrating him, because I'm starting to think that we are.
I'm going to disagree. And the reason why, before I even saw this, I was going to say, yeah, I think there's 100% chance he stays in Philly. But now, even with Houston saying no, I think Houston's bluffing. I think they're trying to get a few more extra pieces. Like, that might be an extra first rounder they're trying to squeeze out of Philly. But we'll see. I mean, I think Daryl Morey really wants to get him there. That's one of his guys that, again, we've talked about how much he likes.
What about Shake Milton? We like Shake Milton, don't we?
No, we don't. We're not Shake
I had to
Milton.
basically describe Shake Milton's entire game to Amir. He didn't know who he was. And this guy's a host of a basketball podcast, and he doesn't know who Shake Milton is?
Yeah, I do know.
It.
He's just a scrub. No one talks about him.
No, he's –
Again, Ben Simmons, we don't know what he's going to do this year. We don't know if he'll even be happy enough to stay in Philly. Hey, maybe after these trade rumors we talked about – you mentioned it earlier. A lot of players don't like getting in these trade rumors. Why? Because, again, they're human. Everyone talks about whatever they want about them, and guess what they get to do? They get to be robots and be like, yeah, I guess I'm going to –
yeah, like imagine your girl just saying, like, I'm going to start looking for other guys, but I'm going to hold on to you for now. And then she's like, she just expects you not to take offense to that. Like, that's going to hurt. Like, especially because you got to think these NBA players, specifically like the younger guys that get mentioned in trade rumors, they're young, right? Like 23, living in a new city, most likely for their life. Like, it's a big thing. And you're making a commitment to a city, and then it's like, they're so quick to want to ship you out if they can get like an upgrade. And it's like, it sucks. And I know players don't really like that. And I think that's okay for players to get upset with that stuff, because anyone would. You know what I mean?
Well, they all talk about, oh, it's a business. But how many players really can go with that mentality? That's the robot mentality that they teach you. But it's hard to be like, yeah, this is just a business. Let me go to San Antonio for the next 3 years with nothing there. Like, especially someone like Ben Simmons. You get drafted to a team, right? When you get drafted to a certain city, that city becomes your new home. And players become so attached, just like fans.
Think about what Giannis said when he re-signed. He said, Milwaukee, this is my second home. Like, it really is their new home. Like, and that's massive for young kids. And then you got to think, they grow into these men, and they're like, I want to stay here forever. Just the way teams are like, well, it's a business. And it's like, but the business side of basketball is so shitty. You know what I mean? Like, love basketball. The business side is so messed up, dude. I hate it.
Completely agree with you there. Let's move on to our last one. Number 3.
I want to win really bad for this city because I've been here for a long time, and, I'm getting there, and this is a city I want to, and I just want to play for one city for the rest of my career, and this is where I want to be, and I want to be able to also make it happen and reward the city and the fans.
There you have Joel Embiid. You can feel his desperation to just want to win a championship for that city. Caleb, buy or sell? Joel Embiid will win a championship in Philadelphia before he moves on or before he retires.
You go first on this one, because I'm very indifferent, and I'm hoping what you say will sway my decision one way or the other.
Yeah, that's what the Better Podcast partner does. I'm going to sell. And honestly, I'm going to sell because Joel reminds me of Dwight Howard, where Dwight had a team built around him his whole career, right? And Orlando put all the pieces they could. They put shooters around him. They gave him a guy like Hedo Turkoglu that could be the focal point of the offense, that doesn't have to just go inside. You have an outside threat. But in Philadelphia, I just don't think that Joel is going to have the right pieces to win a championship. Now, they go and get Harden and trade Ben Simmons. Does that give them a championship? No, because you know how I feel about James Harden. I would rather have Ben Simmons over James Harden already. The fact that Houston won't even take Ben Simmons and they want more is already like, okay, that to me, if I were Philly, I'd be like, yeah, that's off the table. I'm done. But I just don't see it happening in any way. I don't think anyone wants to go to Philly. Their best chance was when they had Jimmy Butler and they lost him because
I agree.
he didn't want to be there.
Let me ask you this. Give me your list, James Harden, Embiid, and Ben Simmons in order from like how you would like where you would want them. Like I'd say one's Embiid, and then you can make an argument either way, 2 or 3. And it's like I don't know what would be better for Embiid to win a championship. Plus, let's look at last year, for example. Ben Simmons obviously out. But everyone was saying Embiid has to score 30. He has to average like 30 and 10 for them to even have a chance. I think he averaged like 34 and 15, and they still got swept. Like,
Yeah.
he's going to have to put up unbelievable numbers. And it's like unfair to him to say that he won't. But like you said, with Dwight, I agree. It's going to be like the same thing. Like the only way Embiid probably wins a championship, he's like ring chaser later on in his career. And it sucks that that's what he's going to have to resort to. But that's what I feel too. Like I'm going to say sell as well.
Yeah, I honestly thought their best chance of a championship, which is unfair to say, but I feel like if LeBron were to have went there, and that's obvious, but that's a guy that they need. They need a guy with championship pedigree, or maybe even a Kawhi. But losing Ben Simmons for Harden to me is a net negative. And I agree with your order. I'd go Embiid, Ben Simmons, Harden. And I get I'm underrating Harden consistently, but again, Harden is not a championship type of player to me. Chris Paul was that player. Chris Paul helped Harden as a leader. Yes, James Harden can really get you the freaking 40 points when you need it that night. He can get you a win in a playoff series, in a tough playoff series. But can he win you 4 games? No. And that's where, to me, I don't see it happening in Philly. I don't think it works. With Ben Simmons and Embiid, we've seen that it's not it, that duo is not enough. They need another star player with them, and they had Jimmy Butler, and they lost to a freaking lucky game winner. So you don't know. That to me was their best chance. Real quick before we move on, I want to talk about a reason why I don't think James Harden fits there, and this is it's like a small clip of James Harden's whole career. Did you watch any of their last Rockets game, Caleb?
Yes.
There was a video. I sent this to Caleb 2 days ago.
I sent this to you.
No.
Is it the one of the pass?
The James Harden and John Wall duo.
Oh, yeah.
There was a video of John Wall crossing somebody up, right? And then he's dribbling. He passes it out to James Harden on the wing, and then Harden gets the ball for 10 seconds, dribble, crosses over, goes inside for a floater. And they say, John Wall and James Harden duo, and they put a fire emoji. And I'm like, how is that a duo? How? Just because a player's involved, that's like saying Jeff Teague and Jason Tatum are a duo.
Now, Jeff Teague and Jason Tatum, that's a superstar duo.
But you got my point, though, right? Like,
yeah.
James Harden's game, and that's an epitome of his game right there. That move, that offense, that's James Harden as a duo. To me, if Philly loses Ben Simmons, that's losing more of their playmaking. That's losing more of touches for the rest of the offense. And I think that'll be the end of Philadelphia's championship hopes.
I'll agree with that. I just feel like you lose a lot of the ball movement if you trade away Ben Simmons. And I understand Harden averages high assist numbers. But as we all know, assists do not tell the whole story. I don't know, man. I feel like you're better off with Ben Simmons. And like we said earlier, though, we don't know if Embiid and him really fit together, but I'd rather roll the dice on that young duo than to sell it now. I don't think Philly's better than Brooklyn. Like if KD's healthy, which he's looked decent in preseason, I don't think Philadelphia is better than Brooklyn.
Yeah, I agree with that, and that's why we have him at 10.
If they were to add James Harden, I don't think that lifts them over Milwaukee, Brooklyn, Boston, Miami, even
Absolutely.
Go.
Absolutely, I agree. We'll see what happens with Philly this year. If the trade happens, you'll hear it first. You won't hear it from Woj. We got you guys the news. Next up,